and to the
to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a moment of silence for our police and firemen and those social workers and hospital workers that keep us safe, and our boys in the military, our men and women in the military. Okay, thank you very much. Will anyone be going through, you're going to record this meeting, Susan?
Yes, we are live streaming on YouTube.
Okay, is anyone else recording the meeting? Okay. Reviewing the tracking log, the only thing we have, Mark, if I'm not mistaken, is the census expansion.
Synthes is the only application we have at the moment.
Okay. Any public comment on, I don't have any public, do I? Any public comment on
not.
non-agenda?
There's no public.
Okay. Any comments on the meeting minutes from June 17th?
Good to me.
I was good with
I
them.
have one on line, on second page, line 23. You call it the pipeline authority, that should be the pipeline task force. That's the only other comments. Anybody else have any comments?
Also on line 24, same page, rather than saying them, should it say the PC? And then also on page 1, line 37, should it be July 1st rather than July 15th?
What line is that?
The second one was on page 1, line 37.
Oh, that is correct. Thank you. Yeah, July 1st. Good pickup. Anybody else? Okay, meeting minutes are approved, Ruth. Thank you. Okay, the first item we have on the agenda is Synthesis USA, the 1303 Goshen Parkway land development. I noticed, Mark, you have a letter in here. Did you want to go through this, or what I was going to suggest we do is ask if anybody had any comments on what they reviewed, or do you want to go first, Mark, and put some information out?
Our company was going by. So we have the consultant reviews in from the township engineer. You can see my comments are pretty straightforward from Nate. Zoning, just a couple minor ones there to be addressed. Conservancy board, you saw that one already.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that you hadn't seen before, the Chester County, you saw that one already as well. The fire service review. So we had our fire experts, fire chief and our fire code official and fire marshal look at the plan. Made a couple comments. And I imagine our applicant tonight will address them and talk about that. We also have the waiver requests. One was added that Nate had noted in his review. So that's been added to the list of waivers. And I believe all those waivers are justified. They're all pretty standard items. So that's all I have.
Okay, did the representatives from Synthesis, did you want to add some information, or did you have a presentation, or you just want to work through this? Hello?
Brendan. I can't see them all.
Brendan? He's not,
Brendan, oh, there he goes.
I don't know if I'm still muted. Yeah, we
No, you're,
I think your memo, Mark, to the PC sort of encapsulates everything that that I didn't have a copy. I was reading along with it as you were. Just as you had said, we've been to the Conservancy Board. That has been taken care of in terms of their recommendations. The review letter we got on June 25th from Pannoni, it's everything was basically resolved. There's a few things there, such as, there was the issue with regard to some lighting detail, which is not an issue, not a problem for us moving forward. I'll prepare a stormwater management report for the application as required. We'll get the written permission from the next door neighbor to put the steel out structure on the outlet structure. So those were really non-issues for us. A bigger issue for us, as Mark highlighted and pointed out, is the fire service review from Mr. DiMartini. Frankly, it came to us a little bit late in the process. It looks like June 24, June 20, June 24th did a memo. It was the first round of review comments we got from staff or consultants. Those started coming out in early May, and then he made some pretty significant comments that we weren't aware of, but I think certainly we're able to work through. Unfortunately, given the fact we've had sort of less than a week to do it, we haven't had the ability to nail down everything that's there, because it really was kind of the first time we heard about it. I think it does point out there's some issue with regard to the fire department, the control there, the fire department access, and then the road. There's certainly no issue in terms of us putting some sort of signage up with regard to the liquids that are in use there, that have been in use there the whole time. And then, making sure trees are pruned back. We're working through the process. And I know Dave Citro, our project engineer, was sort of brainstorming with us, and I think I might have even spoken with some others of the township with regard to how we deal with this. But the comment number 3, with regard to the access point, we have a plan for something, perhaps even making it not a dead end there. But given that it's just been June 24 since we got the letter, we haven't been able to sort of do a code and an ordinance analysis to see if what we're proposing are plausible. But those are certainly things that can and will be worked out in front of the supervisors. Frankly, given the clean letters we had gotten from Chester County Planning Commission, Pannoni, and everyone else, I was hoping to get a recommendation of approval from the plan tonight, subject to us working through those issues with regard to the fire service review letter, because that seems to be the only obstacle there. But perhaps better, maybe Dave Citro can address if what he sees as the resolution or potential resolutions for the fire service plan, because that seems to me to be the only that we're hung up on, and it's sort of late to the table in the last week come to us.
Okay. So let me go through the members of the planning commission, see if they have any questions outside of the fire service review, and then we can talk through what to do with the fire service review. Does that make sense? So is there anybody on the planning commission that has any questions with regard to the information provided by Census and the reviews that were made? Dan?
I have none, except for I do have a question about the fire service review.
All right, let's hold that to the end. Dan, do you have anything?
I wasn't involved with the initial meeting here when it was first presented. I wasn't able to make that meeting. But I guess going through the review letters here and the comments, what is the situation with the height, the building height? I guess there's some note in Mark's letter here. Is the addition the same height as the existing building, or is it taller than the existing building?
Can someone from Census?
Yeah, this is Dave Citro from Mainstay Engineering. The proposed building is going to match the existing building height.
Okay, so it's not taller. At one point, the rendering showed a taller structure.
So we have Josh Vanderveen, our project architect, is on the line too.
I guess, yeah, there's roof screening that we're putting in to block the rooftop equipment that we are installing. That is a bit taller, but the building itself is not taller than the existing building.
To answer your question, Dan?
Yes, it has. That's all that I have.
Mike Koza?
No, I thought it was pretty straightforward. I'm with John now. I was just had some questions on how, on the fire access and how to interpret the drawing, so we could get to that.
Okay. Mike P, any questions? Oh, Ed's on too. How you doing, Ed?
All right, how about yourself?
Good.
Uh,
Mike P, do you have any questions? He's not answering. Okay, Ed, do you have any questions?
no, well, I have one about the fire service review, and then Dan asked the question about the building height, so I think I'm good for right now.
Okay. All right, I have no questions. Why don't we go into the fire service? So what questions did you have on the fire service, Dan?
To be honest with you, I think it'd be, rather than us pepper with questions, I think it'd be a good idea if their engineer could run through what his thoughts were and how he's looking to address that.
Okay. Can you folks do that?
Sure. In fact, Mark and I had a discussion yesterday about the two comments in particular that kind of jumped out as needing to see some additional detail provided. So it's comment number 1 with regard to the fire department connection. And in speaking with Mark, what we will end up doing is provide a dry pipe connection to the existing FDC and provide a standpipe FDC near the curb line. So that should conform to what the fire inspector is looking for in that comment. With respect to comment number 3 about the dead end access road, we're investigating a few options, but what looks to be probably the most promising and practical option in the northwest corner of the northern parking lot, we can make a connection to the adjacent parking lot on the adjacent property, and that will provide a means for the fire apparatus to navigate the entire parking lot without a dead end condition.
Will you need an agreement with the other property owner on that?
There would. I'll let Brendan talk a little bit about this, but it currently is under same ownership, but there would be some kind of access agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, again, this is something that we've sort of been brainstorming and spitballing simply because we knew this was going to be a hot button issue this evening. We've only had just a couple days to go through it. And given the common ownership, it seems to make a lot of sense just to simply alleviate the dead end turnaround radii concern by eliminating the dead end portion of it. Given the common ownership or ownership, I'd have to check the deeds, but it's essentially under control of the applicant. So it's not like something we're going to be going way far outside and having to, spend months negotiating. If it's a fix that works, that's the fix I think we're going to pursue first, simply because it seems to make the most sense. And also, we haven't been prepared to propose because we need to look at ourselves in terms of ordinance and code, how things would work there, and also run it by our people to say, is that something that's okay? It seems to be the lesser or the least intrusive method. So if that's what we'd like to pursue, the least intrusive method, and especially when it's under common control, that I think would make the best sense. I frankly leaving these decisions to the engineering architectural people who can best come up with the ideas. From my perspective, I don't even know what kind of agreement you'd have to make from yourself to allow for the opening there.
Okay.
You would need a recorded easement to make sure that if in the future it's not under common ownership, that the easement would remain.
Right. That would be, that'll be the simple solution there.
I think that probably already exists, Brendan, since both properties share driveways and access today. So if you look at the screen, we have all kinds of shared in and outs and pedestrian access ways. So it's probably just a minor amendment to the existing.
Right. I recall that now, Mark, when we were talking about the walkway over to the other building in 2015, when we were concerned that makes good sense. It might be simply a simple revision to do that. Like I said, we can't lock into 100% what the fix is going to be yet. And I think the the commission can understand that, given it's, you know, it's been less than a week or been exactly a week since the memo came out. But, you know, thankfully, I think with the help of Mark and the engineering team here, they were able to come to an issue with the fire department control. That was a very big access, a very big issue that we were gravely concerned about. So yeah, I would be prepared to say on behalf of the applicant that, you know, applicant, of course, will resolve all these issues before requesting that final, you know, land development approval from the supervisors. It's, you know, something we're gonna have to work out, plain and simple. It seems like there's at least a blueprint of how to get there from point A to point B. It'll certainly be our main focus. As you can see, the vast majority of the concerns have been resolved. So any resources we have will be sort of dedicated to resolving that issue. And it's the only holdup, you know, I'm really seeing, given how clean the plan letters were. It's obviously my preference and our preference on behalf of the applicant that, you know, that another month not go by before we get to the supervisors based upon this issue, when it looks like it's going to be a will comply, or, you know, he's not proposing. If Mr. DiMartini had said, I need applicants to do X or to do Y, I would simply say will comply or won't comply. That would be a little easier. But for where it is right now, it's, you know, asking us to explore and get it done. And I think we all well know the supervisors aren't going to approve it until they have that satisfied. So I think the time will be in front of the supervisors in July to provide us with the opportunity to A, nail down that this fix would work, B, internally through the internal clients and the Synthes and J-Bill people, where obviously you have some corporate interaction there has to take place for that to be approved internally. That can all be done while we're working with the supervisors and nailed down before we ask them for an approval. So I think that's the position. From Dave, from your perspective, do you think it'll be a longer than a month time period? And from our architectural, or from Todd, from J-Bill, do you think it would take longer than that month or so, or a month and a half? We might be in front of the supervisors to get that issue resolved to the point we'll say we could, you know, here's our proposal and we'll comply.
From an engineering standpoint, no.
And from Jabil's point of view, I think that's a reasonable timeline.
I agree.
Well,
Hey,
Brandon, you know how-
excuse me, go ahead, Mark, I'm sorry.
I can tell you that in the current environment with the Zoom meetings that the board's going to continue to use, it has to be buttoned up. And the board doesn't like having loose ends. The planning commission exists to do the heavy lifting. That's why they're here. That's why these comments are addressed now. It's staff's opinion and recommendation that this is not ready for the board, especially now in the current meeting environment with all electronic. We have some board members that only call in on the phone and aren't that savvy. So it has to be buttoned up, in my opinion, but it's the planning commission. It's your decision.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, Ernie.
go ahead.
So I don't understand how, I guess, from an applicant point of view here, just sitting at my desk, I pulled up the recorded subdivision plan while we were going through and having the discussion. There is actually already a blanket easement there, and also an access connection between those two that are shown on the approved subdivision plan. So, I mean, ultimately here, this recorded plan actually shows that lower parking lot connecting to your lot next door. I guess within this last week, you guys weren't able to pull up the recorded subdivision plan and see that?
Well, the idea of, honestly, we were working on things of how to deal with the turning radii, and then came up with the idea that, you know what, if this is a dead end access way issue only, then perhaps it's remove the dead end from it. So, you know, that's where the idea came from.
Well, I think you guys need to just a little homework here and pull up that recorded subdivision plan, which I just did in less than a minute. And you see a 24-foot wire access aisle connecting the two parking lots shown on that approved plan. This lower parking lot area was was basically built, was maybe held in reserve when it was first approved, if it was going to be needed or not. And then it showed a connection between the two parking lots. So I think that is probably going to be your solution. Have David, have you gone through and actually run a turning template to see from a access point of view here if they can actually a fire truck can make that turn?
No, Mark and I spoke yesterday, and Mark sent me the specifications for the fire truck, and we'll be running that radius.
Okay. So my recommendation is for you guys to do a little more homework and pull up that subdivision plan, because it shows that connection already there. It references back an easement, a permanent blanket easement for ingress, egress, parking, and drainage for the benefit of lot 1 over lot 2A. So I think some of that may be already addressed on this recorded plan, and I think you need to make that turn and see if that turn's gonna work in there.
I think that's the issue. The issue is certainly that was the way to break it open, but then does it then satisfy the turning radius? So that's the next step, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little history, that northernmost parking area was added in, I want to say 2008, something like that. So yeah, it was not originally built with the original development. It was added at a later time, and that would have been on the other lot. So you can see it's actually newer if I share my screen. So you can see that on 1301, the newer parking lot was added, but they decided not to connect at that time. So that would definitely be probably the solution to that dead end problem.
Okay. When's the next supervisor meeting, Mark? You know?
Yes, they meet on July. Well, they meet next week, so they're not going to
July
meet.
7th. July 7th and the 21st.
Yes, the 7th and 21st. So
Okay.
you might be able to make the 21st if we were to meet and workshop on the 15th and bless the plan then. But that's a lot of work in a short, basically a 1 week turnaround.
Okay. So the only issue that I'm hearing from the planning commission and from the staff, Mark, is it's the only issue is the fire service review, which is this one issue on the turnaround, right?
I mean, that's the big one that needs resolution. There's some minor things that they can clean up in the meantime that would really help, to button up the plan. But yes, that's the big one.
Okay. So does anyone want to make a motion to move forward with this with the exception of that fire service, or make a motion to move it to the next meeting or have it resolved?
Question for the applicant here. What how's this impact you? I mean, obviously, I don't know what your timing, big picture timing is for your project here, but be curious on how this, what you were anticipating time wise and how this is going to affect you holding off until next month.
Well, I'll let Todd speak on behalf of the applicant as to that. But frankly, in terms of me being the one kind of guiding through the legal process, we had sort of budgeted or time for at least two appearances before the supervisors. It sounds to me coming from Mark that the preference be that the detail work really be done in the planning commission, so that when it gets to the supervisors, a lengthy or sort of redrawn out process again. So yeah, I sort of budgeted at least 2 supervisors meeting for that to begin with. So whether the heavy work is done now and buttoned up now or done before the supervisors really doesn't make that much of a difference if ultimately we're looking at approval sometime in that July 21 to August 15 or so time frame. I don't think it was beyond what I was expecting, but I'll let Todd speak on behalf of the client because he's the one who's really driving the show.
Sure. In terms of the overall project, the main thing is we want to try to get the exterior work done before winter. We've been hoping to go for construction permitting in September. and then hopefully begin the foundation and other exterior work late September or into October, and then try to get all the exterior work done before the winter holidays. So that's currently what our timeline is that we're looking at.
Brendan, I'll
Well,
tell you
let's do
that
this.
this is probably,
We have a workshop meeting scheduled the third Wednesday, Mark, I believe, in 2 weeks.
July 15th is on the
Okay.
advertised.
July 15th, we have a workshop scheduled. If the applicant can get everything put together, I'd be willing to entertain them come to the 15th and we'll look at it. And we'll put it on the agenda and we'll have a meeting.
That's if we can
That
get a
works.
quorum of members.
Pardon me?
That's if you can get a quorum of members.
Okay, the folks who are on right now, is anybody not able to make the 15th?
That's good.
I'm okay.
And Brandon, I see this as a one and done with the board.
Okay.
I think it's pretty straightforward, 1,900 square foot addition, and we're cleaning up a fire access issue and I mean, are you guys will comply on the remote fire department connection?
Yeah, I think that, Dave, this was all, I'll be honest, this was all sort of news to me in the past couple of days. Dave proposed that and moved to the standpipe. I think if that's plausible, that's a no-brainer. And then just the turning radii. So from my perspective, it's just a matter of whether the engineering and architectural people can get the drawings done, submitted to you on behalf of the township. From generally the applicant's perspective, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. If it's, one meeting here tonight and 2 in front of the supervisors, or another one in front of the commission and 1 in front of the supervisors. So I just don't want to jam anybody up in terms of getting the necessary submissions done. So I'd have to defer to Dave and the architectural people with regard to that.
My question for Mark would be for making the 7:15 workshop. When do plans need to be submitted?
Well, considering we're just talking about the one issue, I'd probably just want you to reissue the appropriate sheets of the plan.
Okay.
And that's, and maybe just a brief narrative on how you,
okay,
what you've addressed. I mean, if you wanted to clean up all the Pannoni, I don't think there's many. There's a couple minor things in there.
Yeah.
You could do that as well.
There's only one. There's only one technical item, which was the lighting detail.
Lighting detail.
Okay, so if that could, I'd need everything no later than Thursday the 9th. And I can put everything in the packet for the planning commission to have, because it goes out on Friday the 10th. So, but I mean, you can present things at the 15th, but they wouldn't have an opportunity to see it. So our policy is that the planning commission gets it beforehand. So, and then
Mark, has the
applicant,
sorry,
just a second, John, trying to turn around from the 15th to the board's meeting on the 21st and get you a one-shot deal on the 21st may not be the best bet. I would probably say if we did it on the 15th and we got you clean with the planning commission and a good recommendation, I put it forward to the board on August the 4th. Because I want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row, right, Dave? So we can have the appropriate number plans, all that kind of stuff. And then you'd be done on the August 4th. So.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be better for everyone, the board, a supervisor, a planning commission reviewing something. No one likes to review something and act on something when it seems like it's being jammed down their throat. And I know, Mark, I'm not trying to make more work for people in the township building either in terms of getting things turned around quickly. So based on what Todd has just said, it doesn't seem to me as any kind of a difference. If we can get an approval done before the supervisors on August 4th with a clean recommendation coming from the PC, that seems like the slam dunk easy way to go. I think anything other than that, we twisted ourselves into a pretzel unnecessarily. And with vacations, I know people have vacations coming up and a lot of things happening. So is the workshop meetings on the 15th? When's the next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting?
And that's the challenge. We meet the night after the board meeting in August. So we
So that wouldn't
of August. So
Yeah.
we'd have to do something on the 15th of July. You know, and trying to schedule something else another Wednesday. Although we can do it with vacations and everything else, that's going to be a challenge.
So I would say, you know, Dave and you know, I don't know, Dave, will we need the people from John's Root to be heavily involved in these changes, or something you can do from your office unilaterally?
I think I can, I mean, I think we all are in agreement. So it's something that we'll just gear right up and be ready to submit revised drawings on the 9th.
All right, so it sounds like from the applicant's perspective, we can agree that we'll resubmit by the 15th. Thank you, Dan, for pointing out what appears to be the easiest way to get from point A to point B. We'll get that done and ask for at the workshop on the 15th to see everything cleaned up. It'll give us a couple of days, also maybe get a couple of the minor things, the little some Pannoni done. That's truly a clean letter of recommendation from the PC. And then on the 4th, we can just make our presentation, go through with the clean letters, all will resolve or has been done or will agree. That would be I think the best possible result on behalf of my client. So I'm certainly for that.
One thing I would ask Dave, if you need, if you want to have a powwow once you have your sketches done and everything and turning templates, and you want to sit down with a meeting like this with Vince DiMartini, myself, and just hash it out, then I'm happy to do that. Whatever works for you. And then the other thing, architecturally, I know the board would always appreciates a visual, and I can't remember if we ever had one, Todd, on this project or not.
Yeah, I've got a rendering I can show that has been part of our presentation.
Great. If you could submit that, then
Yes.
For the final board stuff, then that'll make things go a lot smoother too, because you won't have those questions about what it looks like and all that.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move forward. So we're gonna table this and we'll look for a 7:15 workshop. We'll get scheduled and see if you folks can make that, and then hopefully we can. It seems to me like it's pretty clean. If we can get that fixed up, it should be no issues. That work?
Yes.
All right, we'll see
All
you
right.
guys all on July 15th.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You guys can sign off if you'd like.
Thank you.
We're gonna talk pipelines.
Ernie, were
Okay,
there
is that-
members of the public here for the Synthesis application?
Yeah, no, we don't have anyone, John.
There's
Okay.
no members of the public.
Okay.
So, Susan, there was, I should have asked you if there was any other meetings or anything like that going on, but it really doesn't matter because we can Zoom 100 meetings.
Right, no, there are, well, I think you only can do one at a time because we have
We
one
only have one
license.
Susan,
We have one license, we have plenty of Susans, for sure.
I have
But-
a
but-
license. I have a license if you
Oh,
want.
okay, but now it's good, we're open on the 15th.
Okay.
I thought
All
so.
right.
I looked at it. I'm usually the planning commission is usually the only one on that date. So
Yes,
15th.
that's, yeah, we keep it, I kept it marked aside.
Okay. All right, going down the agenda, there's nothing else, conditional uses, ordinance amendments, old business. On the zoning ordinance review, I know I've been trying to hold off on that till we can meet face to face just because of the discussions. However, I did get a call from Brian Sweet in the Futures Committee, and they have some thoughts they'd like to work with us on the changes that could be made for the business park to improve our business park and the desire of people to be in the business park. So what I talked to him and what I agreed to that a couple of us or myself at a minimum will sign into their Futures Committee meeting on 7/16, and they can give us some ideas on, or we can listen to the discussion they have on what they're looking for the business park. And then they'll come to our August 5th meeting. And probably we have some discussion on what they think would be some good issues for the business park. So I'm going to be on that futures committee meeting on 7/16, and maybe Susan, if you could help me get on the
I will make sure you get the information,
on
absolutely.
the invite. If you could send the invite out to the planning commission members, if there's anybody who'd like to join in, that would be great.
Please include me on that, Susan, too.
Will
I'll
do, will do.
as well. And I'm going on vacation the next day, but I'll take one for the team.
Well, it is the futures committee, so I'm sure they can look into the future. So
They're
so I will
good. They're one of the
I will-
better ones out there.
Yeah, so you're all welcome to. I'm definitely going to be there. Mark will be there, and then they'll come and see us on the 5th. And then as we go forward, we'll see what we want to do with potential ordinance changes. I think the only thing we're going to get accomplished this year might just be the business park, but we'll see. Next thing on the agenda is review model ordinances. Have you all had a chance to read the memo that Mark put together? And does anybody have any questions on that? So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So I did go to the last pipeline task force meeting. And my only concern, well, I have a number of concerns with these ordinances. I remember I had requested several months back, or I think in February, some information on where the setbacks came from. And they indicated to me that that was in the probability risk analysis reports that were provided. So I think in their discussion last time, we talked about it. And I think the staff recommendation here makes sense to me, where we should probably generate a letter to give to the board. I think most of the letter is in this letter that Mark has written. What I'd like to do is add in there, Mark, maybe a couple of things that are problematic, such as like how many, we could talk through this, but like how many properties would become non-conforming, or I don't say how many exact, or maybe, some type of representation about the number of properties that would be non-conforming, what have you, and then just ask for the board if they want us to move forward, if that makes sense. Does anybody else on the planning commission have any comments on that?
I have none.
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation here is if Mark has the ability to do it, to print maybe rather than listing number of properties, maybe include 11x17 exhibit of that swath. I think that is, I don't know, like maybe you'll pull up and do that presentation with them. But I think that those maps that you had showed and the impacts, I think that visual impact of how that's going to affect individual property owners is really kind of important. I don't disagree that it would be beneficial to have buffers to these pipelines, but at the risk of taking people's property from them is my biggest concern. And I think sharing those maps is critical.
Okay. Mark, you can print those maps, right?
I will do everything I can to get to some kind of graphical representation for you.
Okay.
To send along with the letter. Yeah.
And I like to have, and if it can include the, I think there's 2 setbacks in there, right? I think there's a 750 and a 300-foot setback. if I'm
Yeah,
not
we can do them
mistaken.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do them both.
Okay.
It'll probably be a decent sized map of the township, because it's pretty massive. I mean, you think about it, it's got to be the whole township, because we have 11 pipelines today.
Right.
The 11th one is being finished. The 10th one is done. And the 11th one is finished. So,
And the other comment you had in there, it said perhaps a more appropriate approach would be identify uses that should have significant setbacks from pipeline and craft language that would protect those uses. But I'm not sure what you were thinking on how that would work. That would have to go into a particular ordinance, correct?
Right. So what I was thinking is, so for care facilities, Bellingham's, Wellington's, a specific ordinance that outlines, how they get approved. And so we could look at that and say, that there's a certain setback. They can't be within 750 feet of a pipeline. or 1,000.
So how many properties could you actually build a Bellingham on that would be,
Exactly.
would be part of this discussion?
Right. So one of the properties in question was the Mars / Lavazza Drinks on Wilson Drive. They have a cornfield there today. They technically could subdivide, and you could have a 4-acre parcel, and you could build another Wellington right there. But if there was a buffer requirement from pipelines, that would say no, they can't do one there. Today they can come in and do it.
So how would you word that? Would you word that in the ordinance only to be for new development? I'm not sure how you word that.
Right.
That's
It would
just,
be,
that's my question. I just don't know how you would do that.
and I would want to talk it through, and I haven't done that with Kristen, but I want to talk through with her on how to best do it. I was just kind of spitballing it to use.
Yeah, my point is that my question on that would be you're picking and choosing certain properties and putting restrictions on certain properties that do not apply to other properties that are existing.
And that's right. And we do that all the time in the conditional use process. So the conditional use process says that, you know, a high school or an elementary school has a specific process to go through, and a specific, you know, their conditional use approval goes through certain steps. So, and so a whole section on that.
So in other words, so you could put in there a conditional use for a senior living facility could not be any closer than X amount on the setbacks.
Yeah, we don't want an adult use. We don't want an adult gentleman's club next to a pipeline. We can put it right in the ordinance. We don't want.
Okay.
The next thing, you don't want.
I don't know if
you don't want an apartment house. You know, that's
condensed. Okay, so well, my other problem is all right. So my concern is with the use of setbacks in general. So when you read the probability risk analysis, okay, the highest risk that they show in them is 10 to the -4th. 10 to the -4th is with a pipe that's actually outside of, right at the raised location. Then you go to 10 to the -5th, and then you go to 10 to the -6. And Ruth, you don't have to worry about getting all this technical stuff.
Yeah.
You go to 10 to the -6, okay? 10 to the -6 would be where these setbacks appropriately are. That means you have a 10 to the -6 probability of having an event. And when you do a probability risk analysis, it is the impact versus the probability, okay? And at 10 to the -6, I don't have it in front of me, but 10 to the -6 is like being in a motor vehicle accident. A fatality. And I know like a lot of places, 10 to the -4th, 10 to the -5th, depending on what municipality or what country, is an acceptable risk. So we're going to put in a restriction based on a setback, but forget the whole probability issue that, the probability. So we're going to impact property based on probability. And that's where my concern is, because the probability of an accident is generally considered within a tolerable risk for where those pipelines are probably going through those particular areas. Am I making sense? Have I lost anybody there?
It makes sense.
Yeah. Sounds good.
I've explained this before. The easiest way to explain this is, to me, not the easiest. One way to explain it is, if your probability of getting in a car accident riding in a snowstorm is X, right? So you do certain things to reduce the probability. You put snow tires on, you have the roads are plowed, whatever, all that type of stuff. So then you keep reducing your probability. Well, if the probability of having a pipeline rupture is 10 to the -6, which is really the final answer on the risk analysis, it's not the setback. It's a setback plus the probability. And I just think that you get into acceptable risk. And I'll tell you, if I was a landowner, I'd go argue that in court if you put that on my property.
And that's what it would probably be. There's our unreasonable restrictions, that aren't And maybe the argument would be they aren't imposed on any of the other uses. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So what I would like to do is if anybody, does anybody have an objection to generating a letter to the board, the supervisors, indicating what we reviewed and indicating our concerns with what we found out? And we can get that letter ginned up if we could review that on the August 4th or 5th meeting, Mark, if that's possible.
I could probably have it for you on the 15th if you want to do that. We're going to meet with.
If you could have it on the 15th, that'd be fine. We'd be more than happy to look at it. And I'd be happy to review that before you get it completed, right?
Perfect.
Does anybody on the commission have any concern with that or any different route you'd like to take?
No, I think that's great.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there any other matters? I'm sorry, any new business that we have? Any other matters? Looks like we don't have a liaison today. Is that correct, Mark?
No, Marty hasn't been attending. Does Marty have a computer now, Susan?
Not yet. It's due August 12th. But
Oh, he's still waiting for it.
Yes, but he did get the call-in information. I give him the call-in information. He just, I guess he wasn't available to call in.
That's fine. Okay, so I'm sorry, backing up, I want to make sure I understood. So pipeline, do you want me to get that together and send it to the board for August 4th?
No,
You want to review it first as a group?
I want to review it as a group by us first.
Fine.
Because then we'll make a motion and approve it and send it on.
I think what I'll do in the meantime is I'll just have a quick conversation with Kristen about my idea, see what she thinks. And if it has merit, I'll let you know, Ernie, and we'll include it. If not, we won't include it, but there's definitely ways you can do it. I mean, she obviously supports some of the things in these ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't support and has real issues with, but so.
Well, maybe what we do, which is one thing that I had thought about. So in those particular properties, let's say if you want to build a school or a daycare or a senior living, maybe as part of conditional uses, we could say entrance to the building has to be on the opposite side of the building from the pipeline. Therefore, in the case of an explosion, you would maybe still have an access for
egress. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is if maybe there's some conditional uses we could put on there or a conditional use with regard to pipelines that might say, okay, it might be safer if we, something like that, which I don't have a problem with that. And, that would make some, depending if the pipeline goes right in the middle of the building, I don't know where the property is, but that would be something that, might be worthwhile to do. Okay. Any other questions on this? All right. One thing about these Zoom meetings, they seem to go quicker. No correspondence, no announcements. So
Anything coming up on the agenda, Mark?
Right now, no. I mean, there's talk of a couple things, but nothing that's really hit the radar. We haven't had any staff, the staff meetings with anybody. So.
Okay. All right. If we have a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you.